Welcome to the Political Matrix News. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the political matrix.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Political Matrix News. How you doing, Scott?
Man, I'm doing good. Hanging out up here in Pensacola, Florida. What's this? On a Tuesday, February 25th.
Yes, it is. And it's a wonderful Florida weather up here. I sent you some pictures earlier today of some wonderful gators sunbathing. And they got they're a little bit ahead on their beach. But here, I think we'll be sunbathing in Florida here probably within the probably mid-March. I think our record winter hopefully is over. I know the Groundhog Day saw a shadow, but I don't think it really matters down here.
Well, no. You know, the weather prediction that I've got is that, that we're having normal Florida weather for the rest of this week, but look out next week. And maybe that's how it turns out. Maybe it doesn't. It's the weather.
Exactly.
They've been screwing up predicting it. They've screwed up predicting the weather so much for so long. I really am just astonished that anyone believes in climate change at all, because it is at the end of the day, it is a weather prediction. And when have we ever gotten the weather right? They make you look in the past and see what it was.
Yeah, I know.
They sure as hell have no good track record with telling you what the future is. And that includes climate science, because I hate to keep going back to this. Back in the 70s, they were saying we were headed for a new ice age.
Yes, they are. And yes, they were. And they're still saying about that now. They're saying that because of the extreme cold weather that we're having now, that we might have turned the corner and we might be heading back into an ice age again. It's all because of climate change.
Yeah,
or as I call weather or God, And so I like to replace climate change with God's work or daily weather, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, my dad's a scientist. My dad's been doing science for years, and we have grown up in the entire climate change world. In fact, he was a climatologist for a short time there. He's an environmental scientist. And the whole idea about science is that most of these scientists live and die on the grants. And climatology and climate grants, there's a lot of money in energy. There's a lot of money in climatology. There's a lot of money in those programs to fund them and to make them live. And their whole idea is to justify that grant and to get the next grant, because it only lasts for a couple of years. You want to do this for 30 or 40 years.
It's funny, but what you're describing is something that's very much basically steeped in something called confirmation bias.
Exactly.
Where when you start looking for a particular answer, you're very likely to find it, because you're going to stop looking when you find that answer. Instead of looking for data and then seeing what the data says.
That's kind of the reality, is that we all know that there's most likely a cure for cancer out there, and there's most likely a cure for AIDS and a cure for a lot of the conditions out there that are killing people, but they make more money, Big Pharma does, in treating the condition rather than curing it. And the same issue is that with climate, these guys are making more money. These scientists are creating papers and creating fake data to treat the situation rather than curing it. They don't want to cure the climate crisis there, because there is no crisis. They make a lot of money, though, in creating a scenario which scares people into spending more money based on their agenda. And it's all a control mechanism, and it's basically, controlling everything. And they keep talking about Elon Musk being the most powerful, the guy who's scaring everybody with so much power for a appointed guy without being elected. It's almost like they totally forgot about Dr. Fauci and his whole crew of people, and Lois Lerner, her whole crew of people. I mean, Lois Lerner went after all the Tea Party guys back in 2010 and shut down almost an entire movement just based off overly auditing and misplaced taxes and everything, tax abuse and tax, war on the conservative movement. Then, they lost the next election. Trump got elected. And so what they have to do, they went after science and medicine. Killed a lot of people, shut down a lot of buildings, shut down a lot of governments, shut down a lot of states, almost all the states. It was all done by a big appointed guy, not elected, called Dr. Fauci, who's actually making money on the side with the vaccine. His wife was the CEO of the company for one of the vaccines. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
I don't understand how he's even able to was even able to hold that position with given the fact that he regulates the people that basically regulates his wife.
He's far more powerful than Elon.
He may be one of the few husbands that do regulate their wives.
Well, the reality is that what he did with the medicine and the treatment makes what Doge is doing seem like kindergarten. I mean, he controlled not just the federal government, but he helped manipulate and control all the states to shut down based off faulty data, faulty references, and basically he had no idea what was going on. Period. I mean, he had already screwed up AIDS a long time ago. He screwed up the bird flu a long time ago. He had the history of screwing up and failing upwards. I mean, Dr. Fauci did.
That's the nature of the government.
But he was never
That's
elected.
the nature of the government. Failing up is a time-honored tradition in the government.
And that's exactly the kind of situation here that Elon Musk and his crew of people who are going into there, looking at all the Doge stuff, are trying to get rid of. They're trying to get rid of all that. And the fact that, that it just still hangs around. And that's the reason why these guys are trying to die on this ill. They're trying to die and say, we are not going to let this happen. We are not going to, let you guys cut off our funding, because that's how they're getting their kickbacks. That's how they're getting all their money sent back to their political action committees or sent back to their nonprofits that their relatives are on the boards of. And I mean, that's the way it works. And right now, a Harvard poll, which is not a right-wing poll, by the way, because you and I are both pollsters, and Harvard Marist poll has almost 74% supporting the way Doge is handling everything. They like the chainsaw idea. I personally don't like the chainsaw idea. However, I mean, it's working, so I'm wrong. I'm okay with being wrong. I'm okay with that. But the whole idea is just to cut the shit out and to get it out. And granted, if you had to put some of it back, you got to put some of it back. The whole idea is that sometimes you just gotta cut out the whole growth. Period.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is that old Elon, maybe he's not a brilliant. Well, he is a brilliant person, but he's not someone that needs to always be right. He frankly, the way that they develop these rockets, they use, and I hate to throw this word out there because the whole, everyone likes to fixate on anything that says Russia. He says, see, he is a Russian. No, but what he is doing is he's using a method that the Russians used to beat us to outer space on a budget.
Exactly.
Which is, NASA was terrified of things blowing up on the pad, and then it'll be on the news tomorrow. There's no way to control. In Russia, first off, things blow up on the pad. It never happened, or it was supposed to happen, or whatever. And the citizens don't really get to complain about it.
Right.
But but here it happens, and all of a sudden you have a public outcry saying, "Well, we're wasting billions of dollars on this fool's errand," and blah 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 blah. And so they were terrified of that happening. What Russia realized was you can learn things from your mistakes, and when things blow up, we go find out why did it blow up. I mean, that Elon had a lot of very public failures, but he learned from them and he fixed them. That's exactly the methodology he's applying to the U.S. government.
Right, exactly.
He knows things are some of these things aren't going to work. If he does, the thing is, you don't know which things aren't going to work. So you try them all, and then the ones that work, so let's say he makes a 50-yard completion, but there's a penalty at the end of the play, and they have to take back 10 of them. Well, he still got 40 yards.
Exactly. It's kind of the DOJ. I mean, whenever he did the email issue where he is asking all the federal employees to list 5 different items that they've done this last week and turn them into a supervisor, or else not doing it could be a sign of resignation. The DOJ said, hey, we don't need any of that stuff going in the emails. We don't need what they're doing. They're just classified, everything else being transferred in that way. On top of that, we have new people in charge at DOJ, so it's not really like they have any direction at all whatsoever. And so DOJ was able to pull out, and Elon Musk and everything, so that's cool, and it all worked out fine. But, that being said, we still have the Interior Department. You have the Department of Education. We got all these other departments, and most of them are complying. And
millions of federal
working
workers.
Out. Exactly. I mean, we're not, and right now, I think they started today, on the 25th, they started going after the DOD, the Department of Defense. And looking at all the waste there is a lot of waste there. But people keep on saying that he's only going after USAID. No, he's going after the Department of Education, which right now, if you cut the Department of Education out, you can probably give most of the kids, most of the families, quite a bit of money to go ahead and handle their own kids' education. I think it's almost $500,000 per family.
I would very much like to know what the administrative cost of the money that goes into that department is versus what they versus how much they send out, because I think that's going to be the most shocking number.
Yeah, and so with the Department of Education, they're going to have a lot of oversight with that. And right now with the Border Patrol, I mean, it's almost like we don't even need Border Patrol agents at the moment, because today we have the lowest number of people crossing. Actually, yesterday we had the lowest number of people crossing the border as we have in 45 years. It said only 200 people have tried to cross the border on the 24th of February. Well, compared to when Biden was the president, we had 6,700 people tried to cross the border on the February 24th of 2024. And that is a 97% decrease.
It's amazing what a difference it makes when you say you're not welcome here versus when you say you are welcome here.
With less money. With less money. And that's kind of the whole idea. Throwing money at situations does not always fix it. I mean, they're not throwing money at the border. They're throwing ideas at the border. They're throwing promises at the border, and it's working. And I mean, this whole idea here with the MS-13 and then calling all the cartels terrorists nationwide is working very well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're picking up sex predators, or picking up drug traffickers and fentanyl traffickers in Austin and Utah and Chicago and New York. And some of the states who are still challenging Pam Bondi say that they are not going to desanctuarize or undo their sanctuary city or sanctuary state status. Those guys are fools, and they're running fool's errands. But consistently, though, they are also the same states who are saying that men can still play women's sports. So they want to protect the drug dealers. They want to protect the fentanyl abusers and the human traffickers, and they also want to protect men from abusing women and women's sports and hurting them, injuring them, as usually the case is in full contact or any other kind of sport there is, or men going into the women's locker rooms. They want to protect that. So they want to protect all the deviancy. And also, whenever they're talking about Boston is another big issue. And in Boston, Massachusetts, with all the, they're trying to protect all the people from coming in and taking their children in Boston, but I don't think they see the correlation here. And Massachusetts has a big, long history with the Catholic Church of protecting the priests for over 100 years. The Catholic Church can protect all the pedophiles and the pedophilia, which happened on a rampant epidemic basis. And so I'm not really surprised at them protecting the immigrant pedophiles as well, and the ones who are being sought out by ICE for child abuse and sexual abuse of children. Massachusetts is, protecting them. So obviously Massachusetts, the state, so has a lot of deviants here running the government. And possibly the way they're raised, I have no idea, because they were raised. I mean, this is not being sarcastic. The Catholic Church does run Massachusetts more or less. And the Catholic Church, the perverted part of the Catholic Church. I mean, I'm not saying everything in Catholicism is bad.
No. Catholics aren't bad. The Catholic Church
they're not.
Is questionable.
Yeah, I mean, but people seem to forget everything. There's a good movie that came out called Spotlight. They talk about cardinal law and everything back in the 80s and 90s and 70s, where there were numerous priests that were abusing children. And these children are now the leaders in Massachusetts. And so there's probably some questionable background behavior that's causing them to run the laws in the manner they are. I know in Maryland today, the Democrats of Maryland are approving vending machines for condoms for kids. Don't they get it?
Here's the part that they don't get, and that's simply that from a campaign perspective, and that's the way that we look at things, that
exactly.
You and I look at things, is how is it, if we were going to have to run this campaign for these guys in the future, what would we have to deal with? And frankly, for the Democrats, unless they just stacked up a big pile of money and said that they weren't going to hold me responsible for them losing, which, I know would be bullshit, because they always blame the consultants.
That was it.
The majority, and in many cases, an overwhelming majority of their internal residents, citizens, don't believe in a lot of these things that these hills they're trying to die on.
No.
And frankly, I think they're going to succeed, because if you, what's going to wind up happening is every day Trump is uncovering more and more. There's going to be a certain amount of rot that Trump identifies legitimately, like really, like this is indisputable and shocking and offensive to everyone, Democrat, Republican, whatever. And he's just doing this. They're going to find plenty. It's not going to matter what other successes he has once he shows what they have done. Once he finishes exposing what they've done, it's not going to matter what he's successful at, because he's succeeded at that. When the Democrats are dying on this hill and already doing things that they don't want to do, the number one tenet of voters, of attracting voters, is giving them a justification for behaving the way they want to behave. If they want to vote a certain way, you give them a justification that they can do. They want to vote against someone, especially someone that they're supposed to support.
Right.
If you give them a reason that they can wrap their head around, all they're looking for is a justification to do it, a way to do that, to support this person without essentially betraying the culture that they grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
When you can convince them and show them directly that culture's betrayed them, now they start jumping on your candidate.
But that's the hardest part, is that people don't realize. I mean, whenever you go campaigns and you talk to them about fundraising, and they just think that you just need this much money to move this many votes. People don't realize whenever you want somebody to vote against their core belief or to vote against their party, it's going to cost twice as much money, because you're actually getting that person to vote against everything that they believe in growing up. So trying to get Democrats to vote Republican, or trying to get Democrats to vote a certain way that is not, centered with the Democrat Party on the Republican side, or anything vice versa, is extremely enormous and extremely difficult to do, and very expensive.
Well, it can be, but it depends on what side you're of the issue you're on, and how well vetted the issue is.
Right, exactly.
I mean, you and I worked on a campaign before where we spent $25,000 and the opposition spent $300,000, and we killed a bill.
Yeah, actually they spent $585,000, and we raised like $22,000. Is all we had raised, and we ended up with 68% of the vote. And so, I mean, a lot of it is messaging, and whenever the perfect time is right for that perfect message, it works out great. But I mean, right now, with the way the political activities are, the political alliances line up, especially like in Maryland, for them to get the condoms out of the classrooms of elementary kids in day school. It's hard to believe. I mean, we're sitting here talking about this, and I know most people who are watching this probably are not going to think that we're full of shit on this unless they go Google it themselves. But Google it, because
please.
I mean, actually, we're going to go ahead and have a reference of it here. We'll have a clip of some people here talking about it here showing up after this segment here, real quick.
It's just
bizarre
how they, as parents, how they can wrap their head around it being a good idea to indoctrinate kids from that age when sex is the farthest thing from their life. This is the age where boys think girls are yucky and girls think boys are yucky, and
well, if you look at it,
even if you buy into the whole, maybe they're transgender when they're 6 years old, even if you buy into that, they're not sexually aware at that time. But the wiring for you to become a sexual being, there's a certain amount of wiring that takes place up in here, and until these things are kind of activated, then you're not feeling those feelings. You feel affection and emotions, but they're not based in sex.
Yeah, unfortunately, the federal government
frankly, they're rarely based on sex when you're growing up.
Unfortunately, the federal government's addicted to it. They're addicted to the sexualization of every culture. In fact, if you look at a lot of the USAID money that was found by Doge, we're talking about, basically sexual topics for comic books and plays and movies and books, not just America, but in Africa and in Asia, in Europe, and Australia. I mean, basically, they're wanting us to encourage or indoctrinate through a sexual means. And so, I mean, I understand if we just want to give them beans or bread or food or water or stuff for like life necessities, like, things that people need, shelter. I mean, that's a decent idea. But to give them things for indoctrination, I have no idea why we are spending taxpayer dollars on indoctrinating other cultures. Like we're trying to indoctrinate our own children here. It's beyond me on why we're trying to do it here. That's why we're trying to do it over ourselves.
These are, and most of the time, these places that this is happening are places where they're not, welcoming of these kind of things to begin with.
Exactly. I mean, it's illegal to be gay.
We're literally, declaring war on their culture.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
you wonder why they don't like us. It's stuff like that. When a founding tenet of your culture, if you go to Gaza and start trying to promote gay pride and stuff like that, they'll shoot you in the street.
They hate it. Exactly. I mean, these guys are very anti-gay, very anti-sexual freedom, anti-anything. I mean, it's basically a man, woman, or nothing. They're going to hang you or kill you or cut you. I mean, these people are not tolerant people. These are evil people. They have zero idea of anybody having any kind of freedom whatsoever. And we are spending taxpayer dollars trying to indoctrinate them through a play or through a storybook. I mean, come on, guys. What are you doing?
They're not fired up about men talking to women that aren't related to them.
Exactly. They're big in polygamy. Like men have like 8 or 10 women, 8 or 10 wives. That's just very, very bizarre over there.
Anything critical of that gives them one more reason to hate the United States. So saying that U.S. aid is like a diplomatic effort that helps us improve our image around the world, it could be, but that ain't how they ran it.
It could be used for a lot of great good. I mean, I believe we should be building. I don't think we should be leaving people in rubble. I don't think we should be leaving people on grass huts. I think we should be building housing and building, transportation routes and infrastructure and everything. I think that humans deserve to live like humans, not deserve to live like animals. Then you always wonder why they don't like us whenever we go over there and help bomb their country. Then we just leave it. I mean, we help destroy all their area so they can have freedom. Now, what are they going to do with their freedom? They're going to go ahead and latch on to the next person who's helping them build everything back. And that person is usually the terrorists. The terrorists are helping them build it back, and they latch onto that. And we wonder why they're latching onto terrorism, because we went ahead and blew everything up and we left.
Well, the terrorists don't help them build back jack. They'll help them build up just to let them get a roof over their head, a rudimentary roof over their head. And I mean like a tin shack. And then they switch the money off and blame the Americans or Israel or someone else.
Yeah, and they keep everybody
because without an enemy, as long as they can create themselves an enemy, then they can have a way to fundraise. And that's all. If everything's good, everyone's content.
It's all about fundraising.
It's always about fundraising. If the people are content and things are okay, and you say, "Hey, man, I need some money to help with this issue," they're like, it'll probably work itself out. But if you can say, "Hey, this issue that you care about a lot, something bad's going to happen, and you need to hire me. You need to donate to me so that I can keep this awful thing from happening." That is the core narrative for Democrats. You know what? There are a lot of Republican things that do it too. I always love to go back to the NRA because they are a great example of the abuses of fundraising. They're a good conservative example of the abuses of fundraising. There are a lot of great gun organizations that ain't got a damn thing to do with the NRA.
Right. And NRA doesn't have a damn thing to do with a Second Amendment. They're not doing anything to help legislation, to push legislation at all. In fact, they end up cowering down, and they usually make a deal with the other side on how much can we raise off this issue here. If we go ahead and let you have 45% of this, can we get 55% of this? And let's all just cut a deal here. We'll cut all the bread in the back room. And it's sad. It's very sad that, it happens on both sides of the fence, though.
And look, I know people are going to be skeptical of it, say, but that's the kind of conspiracy theory my crazy uncle does. The problem is that your uncle hasn't been in those back rooms like Greg and I have been in and watched these deals happen.
And just for full disclosure, we've told law enforcement, the feds, and everything else, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cared at all because everybody's bread was being buttered. Everybody got a piece of their piece. Nobody gave two hoots whatsoever. Now, if the elections start giving two hoots, it'd be wonderful. Statute of limitations are a little bit over right now because this is 15, 20 years ago. But hey, if something happens and I'm in a certain spot or whatever, who knows? Whatever. Because, I mean, the whole idea here is that Scott and I have been doing this consulting for quite a while. With the whole idea here is that the corruption's got to go. And it's just...
It is sad. I am skeptical that they will do anything about things that are old because it's kind of sleeping dogs lie kind of thing. But they are definitely not.
Exactly.
They've never had an appetite for doing anything. Frankly, the only way you could get them to do something in the past is if it was so egregious and the proof was so compelling that it was going to be costing them something. It's going to cost them some public relations points. And that's the only thing that ever made them care about anything. And then the minute they could figure out a way to jump off that train, they might even start an investigation. More often than not, they try to figure out a way to get off of it and just be on it long enough to, till people lose interest or get on to the next thing. And then it just didn't happen. Yeah. But the consequences are rare unless the target is someone who is the target of leadership and the people in charge. Then, the legislative leadership, the county leadership, whoever is in that scope, those people, if those people are against you, they will find a way. They'll, to just say something that, while technically by the language of the words, maybe, can be construed to be illegal, but, when you look at the legislative intent, that wasn't what the law was meant to do. For example, the law they prosecuted the January 6ers on, that was interfering with a government operation or investigate or government something of it. That law was written specifically to address was Enron. The Enron, when Enron shredding documents, it was the shredding of the documents, the destroying of the evidence.
Exactly.
That's what they were talking about, and that's what the law was used about. Now, and the Supreme Court said it, and even after the Supreme Court said it and clarified it, they still kept holding these people in jail and kept running the cases. Because when they have you in jail and when they're holding you in jail, some of these people were in jail for something that, even if they had been guilty of the thing they accused them of, they would have probably only got like 18 months, period.
Oh, far less than that, most likely. I mean, it's the whole situation here, the whole criminalization of political free speech and everything, which seems to be a really big deal. I think you had a guy over here in Utah you were mentioning earlier before the show that wants to go ahead and basically make it illegal to do anything. If you actually knowingly said something that's untruthful, it could be a possible felony.
Yeah. Here it is. House, and I don't know if the speaker is the guy that's well, he can't be the speaker can't sponsor bills, or they can't in Florida. I don't know how things are.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But when the speaker is introducing your bill on the floor, that bill's got traction. They never make it out of committee if they don't have some traction, and the speaker never talks about them. And this, let me frame this bill, because what the bill says is, or the story says, House Speaker Mike Moyle introduced a bill on Friday which would prohibit a person with actual malice from publishing a false statement about another person. And actual malice means that you know for a fact it's not true, but you're saying it anyway. It's long been a tenet of civil
libel
and slander both. But they want to make it a felony to publish things. And look, as someone who has actually sued someone for libel before, I am still not in favor of this.
Yeah.
Because it is the definition of a slippery slope.
That's a very slippery slope.
To start with that, you start letting things like this stand, it is only a matter of time before our actual freedom of speech is gone.
Well, basically, it mirrors exactly kind of what they're doing in Germany right now, which
and England,
as well. They're basically, stopping anybody from saying anything on social media or any kind of media platform or any type of platform that is disagreeable with the people in charge. And it's just, I mean, I understand that the First Amendment is not a case in their countries. They do have some freedom of speech, but not to the same degree that America does. So that's what, and once again, you're welcome. That's what makes us such a wonderful freaking superpower. That's what makes America great, again, and always. And, that's what allows us to do what we're doing right now. And so that being said, I mean, the whole idea that people in the United States are wanting to mirror that is like, basically we're trying to fall backwards, fall downwards.
Well,
and it's got to stop.
What these people don't realize, with the liberal people over there, the socialists over there don't realize, and what the people over here that are thinking that it's a good idea don't understand, is that the first step is being able to say that what you're saying is wrong. All right. Once you can do that, once you've established the precedent of being able to define someone's speech as wrong, then you're literally at the whim of whoever's in charge for what is wrong. I mean, look, even if you're a liberal, if you're a liberal watching this, imagine 10 years ago, some of the things that we're talking about now, the speech codes and things that people are being canceled for. If I'd have said the next step on this is they're going to have, as a matter of fact, you remember when we first had the transgender bathroom bills?
Mm-hmm.
Critique then was, it's only going to be a matter of time before these people are going to be allowed in locker rooms and taking over women's sports. And everyone said, you are crazy. All of the liberal people who are promoting the transgender bathroom bills were saying, you are out of your mind. That'll never happen. And here we are. So to say that I'm out of my mind because I'm opposed to them getting this, like I said, I wasn't able to my libel case got shut down because it was a public official who had deliberately libeled me. And because they said that he had, yeah,
sort of, yeah. That's kind of, right. Yeah.
I don't want it so much that I want to turn it into a felony. It'd be great if it was a felony. And I could just go tell the state's attorney, hey, prosecute this guy. He said something that he knew wasn't true. Well,
exactly.
Next thing you know, you're going to jail for saying that men can't play women's sports.
Right. And I think what you just said there with men can't play women's sports seems to be the new narrative. Instead of saying it's transsexual men playing in women's sports, basically they're just taking the whole word trans out of it altogether. And they're just cutting, they're cutting right to the core of it. It's men and women's sports. And that's just really what we're talking about here. We're not talking about any kind of, sexual identity or different group or any LGBTQ group or anything like that. What we're talking about is men and, fully equipped men who are fully muscular and fully shaped and everything else playing in women's sports and women's locker rooms. And basically, it's got to stop. I mean, Charlemagne the God, which is not a peak of a conservative, masculinism or conservatism at all. But he is saying one thing to his Democrat friends, that you got to get off this, you got to fight and get on a different hill. You can't die on this hill. And the same thing with Bill Maher saying the same thing. And he's a guest on Pod Save America. He was saying that whenever it's a podcast, and it's a liberal podcast. He was saying that basically the Democrat Party has got to get out of its way and quit putting the parents second to the establishment and everything, and also quit putting the safety of women in jeopardy. You can't do that. I mean, everybody needs to be safe. Also, I mean, there's a reality here, a big reality, that it's not safe for anybody, and it's not safe for the transgender people because there's going to be a lot of abuse with them as well. They're going to receive a lot of it, and there's a lot of them that they end up might be giving the abuse as well. It's not safe, period, for that community,
Look,
for that culture. I mean, I know a lot of transgender people who are terrified going places because they're afraid of being jumped, and it's a real fear. And I mean, in a way to avoid that fear, they hate all this this over politicizing of it. Yeah, politicization. Bleh. Sorry, bad words today. And so they hate all of that, and they just wish everybody would just be themselves and be normal and just treat everybody. They like to have their own bathroom. I think Starbucks has the unisex bathrooms, which I think is a great idea. I think everybody should have unisex bathrooms. Just leave it like that.
It's exactly like the bathroom at my house.
I got no problem with them having a third bathroom either. I got no problem with a men's bathroom, women's bathroom, and a third bathroom for them for safety reasons. Yeah. I mean, if they want to be that way, they can be that. They can dress that way and everything else, and they can go to the bathroom safely without anybody jumping them. Because believe me, I've been in public restrooms where trans people walked into a public restroom, and you hear all kinds of comments from guys. I feel sorry if I'm going to walk out of that place. They might jump that guy. And same thing in a female restroom. You hear women like, "Oh, get out of here!" They throw them out of the female restroom. And so I think it's a. I've been in some weird places. Okay, I'm talking about gas station.
I mean,
bathrooms.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've never seen it happen, but
it does. I travel a lot on the road, and at these big gas station places where you have 30 or 40 different cultures in one bathroom. You have a few Pakistanians, a few Mexicans, a few Italians, a few Europeans, and one or two white guys. And then a transvestite comes in, uses the bathroom, and you get comments. It's kind of weird. But I'm in some weird places, so maybe the examples I have are a little more extreme.
Let me tell you something. There are three things that do not intimidate me in a bathroom, and that is a man in a dress, another man, or a woman dressed like a man. Or a woman dressed. I guess there's four things.
I'm exactly the same way.
Or women that dress. I mean, I'll admit that the first time I saw a woman in the men's bathroom at a bar, it was at a bar. It was at a nightclub where there was a show going on. The women's bathroom line was down the freaking hall, and there was like two men standing there waiting to go to the men's room. So it was a little surprising to me. I mean, I was fine with it. I mean, yeah, you got to pee, go pee. But they're not. I mean, if it's become a problem, it's become a problem recently, and frankly, it is a direct result of this.
It is.
You talk about people that can't, want to die on this hill. Dylan Mulvaney has been named one of the. I forget what the position was, but it's a senior position at the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
I mean, did they learn nothing from Bud Light?
They learned nothing. They learned nothing from the election. I mean, and like I said, on our last podcast, we were talking about, they took away the mandate of Trump because it turned into a Ferrari because California was still voting. And so I went ahead and double checked after our podcast, and they are still voting. And so there's still 200,000 votes out that are still counting. And there's a 1% of the 15 million, there's around 200,000 votes out that are still left in California that are still counting. And so not all the counties are 100% yet. That is the reason why you had these elections like this. And
you know what? If you gave me a month, and keep in mind they've had 3 months. If you gave me all by myself 1 month, I could correctly count and tabulate all of those things by hand, all by myself. I could do 200,000 ballots.
Exactly.
So what their justification is for this? Shit, I don't even know why they're doing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know.
It's not going to change the election, and it's certainly not going to change the narrative, because every time they pop up something like this, Trump pops back at them with, "Hey, by the way, why is California throwing away $50 billion on grants for transgender basket weaving classes?"
Exactly. That's just the way it is. It's very, very bizarre right now. I mean, the entire state of the country right now, they're looking at the budgets and how they're fixing the budgets. And tonight on the 25th, the House is supposed to be voting Hopefully they're going to vote tonight.
They did. They did. It
did?
passed.
It did pass. So how many votes did it pass by?
I didn't see that. It was a fairly narrow margin.
Well, I know they only had one vote to spare. So I doubt any Democrats voted with them. I'd be surprised to see if any Democrats voted with them.
Let's see. What was the vote? It was 217 to 215.
Ah, so they won by 2 votes. Perfect. Perfect
With
election.
One Republican voting in opposition.
No way. Who was that?
Who
must find them? We must bring them on the show and talk to them about why they voted against it.
Yeah, I got better things to do. I don't care about that.
That's very true. I have no idea why a Republican will actually vote against no tax on tips, keeping the taxes, the tax cuts from the 2017, basically cutting $2 trillion, nearly $2 trillion out of the budget. Why would any Republican vote against this whatsoever?
The reason I don't care about this is because it's political theater as usual.
It is theater.
And I absolutely that's why Musk and Trump are such breaths of fresh air. They're not theater, and everyone knows that they're dead serious about what they're doing. That's why what they're doing has 75% support. Is because people, the Republicans and the independents, that's what that is.
I would like to say they are theater to a degree because they're theater that people like, though. It's a movie that everybody's going to go see over and over again. That's the reason why they have 75% support. But I think all of this is theater, period.
Well, no, let me tell you what the difference is. With the traditional theater, it was, everyone fights the good fight and nothing happens. Right? With this theater, we're going to fight the good fight and we're going to make some progress. We're not going to make 100%. But let me tell you something. If we only made 25% progress, I think we'll make 75%. But if we only made 25% progress, we're so far ahead of where we've been for decades.
Yeah, but the biggest progress we had to make is we had to make sure it's legislative progress. Everything's codified in law and not just executive orders, because we see just as easily as he undid everything Biden did, which Biden undid everything he did, and he undid everything, so on and so forth. And the next guy could possibly, if it is a Democrat, could undo everything here. And so we got to make sure that does not happen. Hey, it'd be great if the Democrats ever got elected again. But then again, that would also go along with the whole idea that even some close friends of mine were Democrats who are saying that they think that we are canceling all elections for the future. So, no, I'm not saying a Democrat never getting voted against president is not code for canceling elections for the future. It just means that it's going to take a lot for a Democrat executive to be on the same page as the national people on a national basis.
It's not code for canceling elections. It's code for the implosion of the Democratic Party.
Exactly. The Democrat Party is imploding, and they're all going MPA. They're not going Republican yet. Yeah. It's kind of like they're stopping in the middle before they go all the way to the other side.
Well, that's not going to take them too long, because most of them are going to realize that if they're NPA, no party affiliation, then they don't get to choose the candidates, and that's what the strength is.
Exactly.
I've never understood why anyone wanted to be an NPA. I understand
I don't know that.
I understand their resentment of the status quo, but the problem is that if you go NPA, that means that you can't pick who you're going to be voting for in November. Exactly. You just wind up with 2 bad choices.
Well, I think a lot of NPAs don't really know that. A lot of people I'm talking to who switch to NPA think that they can still vote in the primaries. Well, no, you can't. It's a wrong answer, and they have no choice whatsoever who's going to be there voting in November. They don't know that, and so it's going to take them probably a cycle or 2 to figure that out. How come they're only voting one time now instead of before they could vote a lot?
Well, I think a lot of them just have to reconcile their mind with the fact that they are now not a Democrat, or not a Democrat. Now they're going to be a Republican after they've spent decades, in many cases, demonizing Republicans. I tell you, when I registered as a Republican, it raised a couple of eyebrows around here, because when I registered as a Republican, this place was primarily a Democrat stronghold, but it was a conservative. They were conservative Democrats.
Yeah, when I was a college Republican president at the University of West Florida, back in the 90s, we're still a Democrat county. And I mean, most of them were conservative Democrats. I mean, Escambia County was still predominantly Democrat, and now it's a red county. It's a Republican county. And we did a lot to change that.
When my cousin had to switch parties from Democrat to Republican
my dad
to
did
enter
too,
his first race.
Yeah, my dad did that too whenever he ran for UCUA, the Utilities Authority in Escambia County, just like your brother did, your cousin did for the Soil and Water Board in Santa Rosa County. Greg Evers did, and my dad was Logan Fink. And they both, I think, when did he run, 2000 or 98?
That was 2000, because I was in Missouri when he ran.
And so, my dad was in 2000 also. So I guess they switched parties the same year. And so my dad was a lifelong Democrat. Funny story there, my grandma in Suwannee County, Florida, was the first Republican in Suwannee County. And she was actually the only Republican in Suwannee County for 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different party now. And so, I mean, the Republican Party now is a very Big Tent party. It's a very, we don't give a crap about anybody's lifestyles or anything. We just want to make sure everybody's safe and the borders are safe and people are having jobs and have a good economy and have freedoms, period. It's not real hard. It's very simple. Democrats.
There was a time that the Republicans were the judgmental ones. I mean, there
exactly.
was.
Oh, they were horrible.
Everyone's trying to apply these, frankly, faux church standards, because a lot of the church standards that were applying weren't real.
No, they weren't.
Or at least they were being misapplied. They were just using it because it was a club with which you could beat down your opposition.
Right.
And there came a time when that stopped working, and we eventually stopped doing it. Well, now the Democrats have a club that they've been beating people with, and they don't realize that club is entirely ineffective now.
I mean, back in the day, whenever Jerry Falwell was saying that because a hurricane killed a city, it was all because they were gay and God was destroying and killing gay people. That was totally ridiculous. And Democrats are now on the same pattern, and they're following the same trend that the Republicans did right before they imploded totally.
Make no mistake, the reason that they look so awkward doing all of this stuff is because they have no clue that they know that they have got to stop this. It is a matter of survival for their political system, but for their income system.
Exactly, because
they are desperate to make sure this stuff happens, because if they don't, they're going to lose their... the money's going to dry up, and what are they going to do?
And people do not realize the way it works is that whenever these guys would get a contract from like USAID, so we're going to go ahead and give a little backroom scene here of the way my theory, the way I think it works. I'm not going to say this perfectly is how it works. This is my opinion on how it works, because I've seen it work this way. And so basically, a NGO or organization or a nonprofit gets a good contract, and then basically, in order for that contract to be processed fully, the elected official who helped push that contract for them got a kickback either for a relative's company, or for a relative's nonprofit, or for his wife's nonprofit, or for his kids' college fund or something like that. And the elected official got a kickback into cash or some other sort of service. And then it generates itself over and over again. And each contract gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because all these contracts only last for basically 10 months to a year. So to get it renewed, they have to go back to the same people. And then that person will get somebody else involved. That elected official will get another elected official involved. And so the contract gets larger. The grants get larger. The kickbacks get larger.
Let me give you a great example of, actually, frankly, the process you were just talking about, because we've both seen it. We both watched it. Usually what happens is some guy leaves the government for whatever reason, goes and sets up some business that's usually a brokerage, and then he comes back, and then say you write a contract to USAID. Well, USAID writes that, USAID writes a contract to some NGO. That NGO knows that, so the guy from the brokerage comes by and talks to the NGO and says, hey, man, if you were one of my customers, I could help advocate for you and you'd probably get these grants. Well, of course you're going to get the grants, because the NGO or the vendor broker is tied to someone in the administration. And so the NGO gives the USAID gives the grants to the NGO hires the broker, and then the broker kicks it back to someone else. There's so many hands it's gone through that you just can't track it. But the real life example of what you're talking about is Chelsea Clinton,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the USAID wrote a big grant to an NGO that she was connected to, and $20 million of that went in her pocket, and some of it went to buying a real estate for her, personal real estate, and some of it went to paying for her wedding.
A lot of it's Jim
So
Biden,
if you,
Joe Biden, and Hunter Biden 101.
yeah, well, no, this is Biden learning from the
Biden
master,
Inc.
because let me tell you something,
Clinton
nobody made money like the Clintons.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like us. I mean, we helped start Autism Pensacola in Pensacola, Florida, and we were working with a awesome, incredible person named Susan Byram, and she was the executive director. And people were trying to. My dad was chairman of the UCUA at the time, and so he used his political leverage to encourage people to go ahead and donate to the nonprofit. However, with this nonprofit, all the money went to a school for autistic kids, autistic children, all over the country. We would bring people in from all over the nation. People were asking, where's the kickback? I mean, people were asking me nonchalantly, how come, where's the rest of the money? Like, is there, all the money raised goes exactly to the kids, to the school, period. There's no kickbacks. There's no grafts. There's none of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that a surprise to y'all?
I know the people that you're talking about. I had one of them bragging about having been a bag man for Mayor Daley. That's literally how he described himself.
Yes, we know quite a few guys like that, and
I'm like,
it's pathetic. And these are Democrats.
I mean, one of them, one individual in particular, came to me directly and told me that he was working with this county commissioner, and if we would donate, say, $10,000 to this PAC that he's working on for what I don't even remember how he stumbled through the explanation of the PAC, that he was confident that a lot of my troubles would go away.
Exactly. And
like,
also
really?
on the flip side, whenever you and I were doing other nonprofits throughout the Pensacola region, and this is one reason why I did move to Gainesville, is that just a little bit of backstory here, is that I mean, this is the realities here. This is how Democrats work. They went out of their ways to make sure that if anybody would buy advertising in any of our publications, that they would lose their contracts, that they would lose any kind of funding. They never ever talk to us directly, nor would they. But basically, I mean, we're just trying to do a publication about kids' sports and nonprofits, just bringing about the importance of mentoring and the importance of highlighting children who are doing really good on the field or really good on the baseball diamond and keeping out of drugs and keeping off the streets. We thought that was a good thing. We thought it was a good idea. We're actually both sports writers on top of that. So, I mean, we had a very good team, a very good publication, but because of the political alliances of the way it works, it's sad. And this is happening and I know we're not the only guys it happens to. The Democrat Party and the liberals out there are poisoning free speech, are poisoning any kind of free enterprise that does not coalesce with their agenda. That's the whole idea, is that if you're outside of their agenda, you're outside of their desire, they will destroy you.
Well, it's if you're outside their
Or
network,
attempt to.
because, I mean, the protocol is basically they get you compromised in some way. They get you guilty of what you think may be do me a favor and do this thing. I know it's like technically illegal, but it'll be okay. And then what you don't understand is the way when they ask you to do that, they've already set you up.
Exactly.
To take this minor league, maybe at most misdemeanor, that like, oh, it's a stupid law anyway, whatever, and no one's ever going to know, to immediately snare you in this and threaten you with the maximum penalty of whatever it is. Even if it's a low-grade misdemeanor, the maximum is a year in jail, and no one wants to do that. And for many of them, it'll cost them their careers or whatever. So
right
now they've got a stick, and they entice you to take a little bit of money for whatever. As soon as you take the money, now they've got a big stick, and they can just start feeding you much smaller carrots.
Exactly. And that's
actually, it is exactly the way the mafia operates.
And that's exactly the way that we were talking about before, and how a lot of the local governments throughout all the different states are operating. And that's where DOJ comes in, is cleaning out all these all these secrets, cleaning out all of these scenarios throughout the federal government. And it needs to be done at a state level as well. I think Ron DeSantis here, the governor here, has announced that he's doing the same kind of process here throughout Florida. However, he can do it all through the counties because the counties and the state work together, but the cities are a little different. The cities have League of Cities. And so whoever's in charge of the League of Cities of Florida is going to have to more or less do the Doge aspect throughout the municipalities in Florida. And I think once they do that, they're going to find a lot of stuff. In fact, I think you sent me a website. It's called openthebooks.com. And
yeah, Open the Books.
There,
that's a great, go.
Yeah.
If you're curious about your government, go to openbooks.com. It'll tell you about every check that they've written.
Yeah, and all the salaries for
all the salaries.
Every township and every city nationwide. It's very
great
impressive.
Organization.
It's a great. They're out of Boca Raton. Once again, Florida. They're another Florida-based organization, just like we are. And it's a really good group. And we're talking about another Florida guy we forgot to mention this, Dan Bongino. Dan's another Florida guy. Once again, Florida. If anybody wonders, Florida is controlling the world. We control all the world through the presidency. The vice president should be from Florida. I mean,
right.
He should be from Central Florida. He acts just like everybody else around here.
If there wasn't a federal law prohibiting it, we probably would have.
Yeah, exactly. And then we got, the Attorney General. We got the Deputy FBI Director. I mean, we got the Secretary of State.
Waltz.
We got NSA Director. I mean, we're controlling all the secrets in and out totally. There's actually a reason why we bring up the story we just brought up about the corruption and everything else on a local level, because that's how it gets elevated to the higher level. It all starts there. And then these guys become higher elected officials. And we mentioned, because he was a congressman, and it all went to his level. And now I will say this, Rick Sky is a personal great guy, a friend of ours. I don't see any corruption at all. I do know he has issues before he got elected. But I think it's all well water underneath the bridge. I think he was doing a great senator. I think the new senator we have now, they replaced Rubio, Ashley Moody, who was the former Attorney General of Florida. She is as clean as a whistle, period. And so I think on a very high level, Florida has some impeccable leaders.
For sure. We've sent a lot of good people to Washington, for sure.
Yeah, but Doge is going to have a lot of fun in Florida. He's going to have Doge on a Tallahassee level. I know at least here in Alachua County, where I live now, and back in Escambia, where I used to live, where you live now, freaking God, the corruption and the overpaying and of contracts that are not being done or being done by somebody's cousin who's not really insured. I mean, here in Alachua County, we have voters who are not even real. I mean, today we actually went through a database that the Alachua County, if anybody doesn't know, that you can actually, I guess Florida does have same-day voting. Nobody knew that. You actually change your county to county in Florida on the same day, election day, and vote without them verifying anything. But the question is, are the numbers really real? Because we got this here one number from one person at the elections office that has 6,702 people. Then we have a database that has 6,740 people. Then another database with 6,735 people. Then he wants to invoice everybody for 7,000 people. And so, I mean, the whole idea here is that, where are the numbers consistent?
When you talk about invoicing you, though, what you're talking about is that in Florida's public records law, if your request is going to take a certain amount of resources, then the state or the organization can bill you for the actual costs of doing that. And in the statute, it does say actual cost.
Exactly. Which means the numbers are going to be identical.
If all the databases say that there's only 6,300
or 6,700,
6,700 people, and they're billing you for 7,000, then that means that they're billing you for 300 people who either don't exist or they've lied about not existing. Exactly. Because in the previous databases, they said these people weren't real. Now their database says these people are real.
And on top of that, on the website for the supervisor of elections in Alachua County, they kept saying that there's only 163,000 and change eligible voters. But according to the state of Florida database, if you look at all the eligible voters, there's 174,000. So, you have a 10,000 voter database discrepancy there of how many they're saying are eligible compared to how many the database says are eligible. And so, I mean, you have a strong inconsistency with numbers in numerical values. And whenever you're talking about votes matter. You and I have both been in elections that were settled by 30 votes or less, at least 4 elections. And now, how many other consultants out there have done that? I dare anybody.
There ain't many of them.
Yeah, give it a try. Okay, let us know who you are. And I'd love to talk to you. It'd be awesome because you and I have both been involved in races. In fact, we're involved in one race is 4 votes separation, and one vote race is 3 votes. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we are used to close elections, so every gosh darn vote does count. And people also don't realize that whenever you budget your counties, you budget your cities, you budget your states, they're all budgeted based off the numerical value of people and voters who are living in a certain area. And so if you have your numbers wrong, your budget's wrong.
Yeah, and that's the budget from Tallahassee. So exactly. Every county says this is how many people I have, and so this is what my share of the money from Tallahassee is supposed to be. So when you artificially pump that one direction or the other, what you're literally doing is stealing money.
Exactly. Now, for example, in Alachua County, we had 8,000 people move here in the last 4 years, according to the U.S. Census. Now, according to those 8,000 people that moved here in the last 4 years, if we want to believe these numbers from the elections office, 6,700 of them decided to vote and change their county to vote, which is nearly almost 80% of all the people that moved here. Okay, that doesn't, I'm sorry. I'm sure we encourage people to vote. That's great. But they did not vote at that high of a number. And they did not change. God, no. And they did not change in 10 days for that high of a number.
They certainly don't move. They don't move here.
No. Or do they? Or do they move here to vote here if you just want your numbers right? Because, well, we're talking about all the abortion numbers and everything else. People don't realize that for a state amendment, here's a lot of inside baseball here tonight. For a state amendment here, you had to have all your stuff in Florida done proportionally by county. And so it's not just you get 500,000 petitions. It has to be like 10,000 from one county, 8,000 from another county, 30,000 from another county. It all has to be exactly proportional. And so what you do is you make sure there's enough votes available in a county, if you're short, to make sure you have them, absentee signatures, to make sure that they are proportionally available. Mm-hmm. Because, there's 11,000 fake petitions out there, and 7,000 of the 11,000 came from Alachua County, allegedly.
Before you start thinking that we're quibbling over small numbers, what you got to understand is these numbers are supposed to be right. And the fact that they're not is an indicator of fraud, because it's actually easy to get them right. I mean,
it is.
All of you people have voted before. I assume most of you people have voted before, and you know that they're just tiny little marks. The exact same technology that we use to tabulate votes, we use to do the ACT tests. We use for standardized testing in place. We can get those things back 100% of the time, and they're always right. Boom! It's not rocket science. Unless
the machines jam up or get lost, or ballots get stuck in a car, or in Santa Rosa County, some ballots were in a safe, a few ballots were in a drunk. And whenever, I always ask the election officers, when they found the ballots, what did they do with them? Did it change the results of the election? No. The results were still the same. I said, but you found the ballots. You could have counted them. You have 15 days to certify the election. You still could have counted them. We don't know.
I'll tell you a great state law. Because
once again, Florida is leading the world here. So once again, let's keep that in mind. And we're talking about Florida.
Okay. All right. So I'll tell you a great law, which would be that if a container of ballots are discovered in an area they're not supposed to be, then the requirement is to immediately call the law enforcement, and law enforcement has to come and conduct an investigation into what happened and how they got there.
Right.
And why they were stored there. And I mean, I don't care if everyone knows what the answer is. I think that they should still do it because the threat of the investigation goes a long way to cooling off the boldness that you feel that you're going to get away with it. Because when it's not just the supervisor of elections who's the arbiter of whether things are legal or not, now all of a sudden things get a little bit. It's kind of like a check against or a verification process,
Right.
but some variation on that where law enforcement gets involved during any irregularity.
Exactly.
Send the deputies in, and the deputies need to take a look at it.
I mean, we actually asked for that to happen this last year whenever we were notified that post mailmen were dumping ballots in the dumpster. And they're dumping direct mail for campaigns in the dumpster. And we asked them to get involved. And once again, crickets.
And that's why I say the law should be they shall get involved.
Exactly.
Not may
not
get
may.
involved.
Exactly. And once again, I mean, and so these are the types of things that, and Florida is a very powerful state, as we've talked about. Everybody should know. But if it's happening here, it's damn well happening in the 49 states. And people keep on telling me, it just never happens. It never happens. I'm like, guys, you're such naive fools. You have no idea what's happening whenever you're enjoying your lattes and enjoying your life. That's great. I applaud everybody for enjoying life.
But let me kind of frame this in a way that you can understand. All of you have a place of work, and all of you know, well, a lot have been in a place of work.
Exactly.
Everyone has had a job at some point or another. I assume most of these people that are watching us have had a job at one time in their life. And you all know that in that job or in your school, there are things that happen in that school or in that job that the general public is entirely unaware of. And you say amongst yourselves, man, if people only knew.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? That's us. Our job, our inside perspective is politics. And if you only knew the things that we've seen, then you'd be outraged. And there's just no way for us to make you understand without actually seeing what we're talking about.
You might want to call us whistleblowers. You might want to call us, I don't really give a fuck what you call us. The whole reality here is that, we've seen more in the back rooms and deals that should be allowed to happen. But I mean, and also, but the backroom deals is also what's affecting Zelensky and Russia right now with Trump. It's a dovetail into that issue there. I mean, they're talking about the mineral rights that Trump wants from Ukraine. That's 60% of those mineral rights are owned by Russia because Russia is occupying that land of Ukraine. And so in order for us to have access to those, we had to have either A, Russia work with America on the mineral rights from Ukraine, or B, Russia remove themselves from that land. And
that's
leave
why
the land.
That's what I say. I'm going to reserve judgment on this whole Ukraine thing until the whole thing plays out, because you don't know what's a move and what's reality. Now, I know things I would like to happen. I would like Russia to. I would like the whole thing to comply with the law, and with international law, and and return to the borders that they have. That they
exactly.
have. I mean,
in all reality, we're not saying we love Putin. So people need to quit getting confused about us saying that we're supporting Russia, we're loving Russia. I hate that motherfucker, okay? He actually tried to kill my aunts and uncles back when he was in the KGB. My aunt and uncles were smuggling Bibles into Russia back in the 60s and 70s. He actually put a hit on them. So we don't really have any love for that guy whatsoever. And that was way back when the Soviet communism. The reality here is that Zelensky is a dictator as well. He's not really running Ukraine. Right. Trump was right whenever he said that. He's not running Ukraine. He's killed and he knocks off preachers. There's no freedom of religion. There's no real freedom of speech over there. They don't have the democracy or the republic that would be desirable. In fact, the main difference is that they're not Russia. He's not Putin, but it's just really the same similar type of government. And that's just the reality. And I mean, granted, we don't want Russia to take over Ukraine and start taking the rest of Europe. However, at the same time, Zelensky is not the best choice leader for Ukraine. In fact, there's not actually a lot of Ukrainians left over there to even have a real election currently. And I mean, basically, if you want a country to elect their new leader, most of Ukraine, most of the people that are not fighting the war have gone the hell out of Ukraine already anyhow. And so there's that, the entire population has been, whittled away quickly through this 3-year war. And so there is no easy answer at all.
Well, again, we're talking about demographic collapse, and this is the thing that people just really don't understand.
Yeah,
Russia is on the cusp of a demographic collapse. Ukraine is even in a worse position.
exactly.
And so all of these countries are going to be just falling by the wayside. Once we lock in these mineral rights, all we got to do is sit back and watch them fall right flat on their face. And I don't know if it's going to be better or worse. But at the end of the day, it's not us.
Well,
We have no business imposing our values on these people. So Russia is evil. Well, if Ukraine is also evil, they're just like you're saying, not Russia. Then why do we care? Let them fight it out. Let them do this. They're both going to be on their flat on their tails in about 10 years anyway.
I mean, the corruption in Ukraine is paramount. It's high. I mean, there's a lot of rumors out there. Actually, I know some people who are in the CIA who are telling me that the weapons that are being used by Hamas and Hezbollah were weapons that America gave to Ukraine, and Ukraine sold to Hamas and Hezbollah for money because they need funding for other weapons. And so basically, I mean, they're going to cut a deal with anybody. They'll cut a deal. They'll cut a deal with Putin if they could. But in fact, the problem is that Putin wants to kill them. They want to kill him. So the whole deal cutting is not even existent. And so, the whole situation here is that, it needs to be done and stopped, granted. And having a DOD, American contractors over there and doing the mineral rights, one thing for sure is that people are not going to be attacking American contractors. We're going to be blowing up things around DOD contractors, because at the end of the day, as we've talked about this entire charade of money in politics, American contractors are the kings, and they're not going to mess with that.
The more boots we have on the ground in one of these countries, the safer that country is.
They're not going to buy the hand that feeds them like that.
I mean, our business. I shouldn't say boots on the ground. The more penny loafers that we have on the ground over there,
the more Italian
the safer that country is.
The more Italian loafers worn by Americans.
Indeed.
And so, the reality here is that they're not going to buy the hand that feeds them. We feed them. Everybody keeps talking about NATO. We run NATO. When you talk about NATO troops, you're talking about American troops. Just without saying American troops. You're not going to get Germany putting anybody in there, especially with their new president that they have in Germany, a new chancellor. Was it a president or a chancellor? I don't know what it is in Germany. But he's not very pro-American right now, since Elon Musk and J.D. Vance worked very hard to run against him. And the guy that they supported only got 20% of the vote. This guy, I think, got 40 or 45% of the vote. And so they're on the losing side of the ticket, and he's pretty pissed at them.
I will say this, that I do wish that J.D. Vance and, frankly, Elon, they need to stay in their lane and not.
Yeah,
and
we should see have other elections.
They don't need to be involved in another country's elections. There are a lot of people that I wish that the mayor of London was not someone who's trying to turn it into a Muslim paradise. And I don't have a problem with Muslims, but he's literally trying to import a new culture. It used to be back in antiquity that if you came in and you wanted to take over a place, putting your people there, you used to have to bring your people in there behind an army who was forcing the people that were there to let them be there. What is happening in England is they're trying to make it happen. They're inviting them over.
Yeah, it's like Biden did.
The
with
Roman
the
Empire.
South Americans.
Part of what caused the fall, the nail in the coffin of the Roman Empire, was the Visigoths that they allowed, or the Westgoths actually, that they allowed to go settle in Spain and then establish a foothold there, and then they permeated through the entire Roman Empire to the point until they collapsed. And it was ignoring these people, not compelling them to be absorbed into
to assimilate.
Assimilate. There you go. They compelled them to assimilate into the Roman culture. England and Europe, they're bringing all these people from these Muslim countries that have entirely incompatible cultures and not requiring them to do anything.
Well, they can go ahead and ask Kamala Harris and Biden how that worked out for them, because they were inviting Mexicans and Venezuelans and everybody from South America and anybody from Pakistan, anywhere from the entire world, come through the southern border, because, that's the best border to come into. Just come in, you're uninvited. And see how it worked out for them. Not too good.
It's going to be different. All right. I want to talk about one thing before we go. And, we were talking earlier, these tariffs that are being imposed, I think they're going to be hard for a while. It's forcing our business to reconfigure. I will say that it's going to affect me personally. We have we're right now, my day job is I build affordable housing. And let me tell you, before you start looking weird about affordable housing, the only difference in the construction of the apartments that I build for affordable housing and one that I would put on the beach to sell as condos, the only difference is that those market rate ones have marble countertops, and the affordable housing have masonite and stuff like that, or particle board basically countertops, and that's it. But the problem is that we just signed a contract for a HUD D4 affordable housing property, and the narrative all day long as I'm trying to sign up all my subcontractors is, well, we have to put in some kind of provision here that protects us in case the tariffs artificially push the price of these goods up. And my only complaint isn't that this is happening or that that's going to be the case. Is I'd like to have some flexibility in HUD so that we can go back to HUD. And understand this, HUD does not give us money. HUD approves the bank. We have a regional bank that's financing the project, and all HUD does is says that if they're going to back the loan, that if something happens with the loan, that they'll back the loan and they'll come after the developers if there's a problem. All I need them to be able to do is say, well, if a tariff causes a price increase, then we need to be able to increase the scope of the project. That's it. So, because otherwise we're going to have a whole lot of affordable housing projects and housing projects of any variety coming to a complete halt because people can't, something that I could have got done for $1.5 million this week, which was that was the site work. So the site work on this project's $1.5 million, but it requires stuff that may be imported, and if it's imported, and all of a sudden now it costs $2 million, which is a real possibility.
Right.
Well, now all of a sudden that portion of the project, well, I have a little bit of fluff in the project, so that contingency in the project,
right,
to address things like that. But but there's only so much, and you take a $200,000 hit here and a $200,000 hit here. After a while, the whole project's insolvent.
Right. And I think since yours is a HUD project, it's most likely going to be grandfathered in, regardless of what happens with HUD in the future. They're going to have a wind down process. Exactly. Yeah. Wind down. Yeah.
But so I mean, the obligations are the obligations. I don't think that there's any appetite to stop
take housing
ongoing
away.
Projects.
Hopefully not.
Well, I hope not. It's a good project for me. It's a good project for the community.
It is,
because we always get invited back.
I think you guys are really your housing more is geared toward military housing and military individuals. Correct?
Military people wind up living there a lot, living in those places a lot. It depends on where it's located. What the population is.
Right.
But we get a lot of enlisted people. We get junior enlisted folks.
Right.
But we also just get a lot of young people. The sweet spot for our projects are people that make. I think the minimum you can make is like $25,000. The most you can make, depending on how many people are in your apartment,
Right.
is like $40,000 or
Oh,
something
okay.
like
So it's
that.
very tight.
Yeah. It's a very narrow band, but it's really kind of, and there are requirements in it, so that they have to have these monthly classes for money management
Right.
and stuff like that. So it's a thing that gets people who are either in elderly people on fixed incomes qualify a lot, and young people who are just starting out and trying to move up qualify
Okay.
a lot.
That's cool. That's a cool project. So yeah, I mean, and so how many housing projects have y'all done so far?
Well, it's a new company. This company is a
Right.
new company.
Right.
We've only done about 4. We've built 4 complexes in the last 2 years,
That's not
and
bad.
no, it's about $60 million worth of construction.
Right. So I mean, and those are the types of programs that I mean, I think that DOGE and the government needs to really start focusing on, and those are the kind of things that need to be done in Gaza, or in Ukraine, or in LA, and where the fires are, that can actually be done on a very affordable manner, and also in an expeditious manner, because I mean,
Well,
that's what people are not looking at.
yeah, but think about what this business model is, because we're not actually getting government money. We
Right.
don't get government money. What we
Oh,
get is government loan guarantees,
okay.
and that's what makes the projects viable. Is
Right.
under this program, there are tax benefits too, but the loan guarantees are the big thing. So I mean, it makes it possible for the bank to come in and
Right.
finance a project in an economically depressed area, because normally they'd be worried about, are you going to get enough business
Funding. Yeah.
to be able to service the loan?
And
But,
you're predominantly doing Florida right now, right?
well, yeah, right now we're only doing Florida, but we're looking at other
Right.
things. We were looking at a couple of projects in Alabama and some in Georgia. But yeah, I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great solution for the hurricane issues, for the hurricane damage areas of North Carolina. By the way, they're still living in tents,
Uh,
and still don't have hotel funding. There's no hotels available. I mean, people don't seem to realize that over these guys to rebuild, they actually have to stay probably within like 30 or 40 miles of where they live, and there's nothing at all anywhere to stay. And it's still below freezing, and snowing, and that's really the thing that really pisses a lot of people off, is that they're being shafted basically, while this USAID money and all this other government money is going out to all these other projects instead of taking care of our people first. Period. I mean, it
Indeed.
can't be put any simpler. But yeah, it's a great job what you guys are doing for the building, and hopefully y'all get involved in some of the hurricane
Well,
relief and fire relief and everything else.
like I said, President Trump, please, if you're going to do all these tariffs, and like I said, I fully support it, please just give us some flexibility in HUD so we can complete these projects and give these people a place to live. If anyone understands real estate, I think it's our
I
president.
think he does, yeah. I think the way he's going to take care of everything else is going to be really interesting next couple of years.
Indeed.
Hopefully we'll win the re-election here in the off cycle. Yeah, that's going to be fun. But y'all have a good evening. It's been a great talking to you tonight here. And please like us, share us, subscribe. We just hit 350 subscribers on Facebook, and that's pretty good for us without any type of advertising, except for us asking you to subscribe. That's it. And we're being blocked on any kind of Google ads because we're too conservative. Algorithms don't like us. But, we're going to stick it in there. And please just share us, and we appreciate it.
Share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. That's the only way to beat the algorithm.
Exactly. You have a good night. Bye-bye.